now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. He reported on manipulation at the last Synod on the Family. How did the final round go? Joining us via satellite from Rome, the Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Register and author of the book, The Rigging of a Vatican Synod, Edward Pentin. Edward, thanks for being with us. As a means of setting up my first question, this is Cardinal Wilfrid Napier, this week discussing last year's Synod. Listen.
There were certain individual items that were of concern at the last Synod, and one in particular was the presentation of the interim report as if it had come from the Synod, as if it was part of the Synod's deliberation. That document was already saying things which I know were only said in the hall by at the most two or three people, but it was presented as if they were the reflection of the Synod. Now, that certainly gives you the impression that the Synod is being pushed in a certain direction.
So, Edward Pentin, was this Synod on the Family rigged?
It's a bit early to say, Raymond. I mean, we're going to have to look back at this because there are things probably that have gone on which we haven't heard about from our side of things. But I think on the face of it, I think this Synod has gone much better. I think the letter of the 13 cardinals, as Cardinal Napier said at the press conference, did set things at ease a little bit, and I think there was a certain amount of reassurance there that the Pope gave that there wouldn't be a manipulation. So that allowed people to sort of concentrate on the work in hand rather than worrying about that. So that was a positive thing. But there are different aspects which have been of concern, which we can go into if you like. Yeah.
Well, tell me what are some of the areas? I mean, when you look at the group that actually drafted this final document, it's the same people that you describe in your book as inserting phrases and shaping that very controversial midterm report, Forte and Baldessari and others. What are the Synod Fathers telling you? What concerns are they sharing with you?
Well, as that letter showed, that one of this is the big concern, that the drafting committee of the final report is made up of probably 7 out of 10 of them have what people would say don't have a very robust understanding of the Church's teaching on marriage and the family. So people are saying, well, the deck is obviously it's a stacked deck there in that case. But it's still early to say because we're going to have to wait and see what the final report says. But just hearing what's been happening tonight, a Synod Father came out of the Synod Hall and said, well, we've been sent home to look at the draft report. But it's only in Italian, and it's a big, thick document. It's 100 paragraphs of what they've been discussing, and it's only in Italian. So, not everybody speaks Italian, of course, in the Synod Hall, and so they've got just a few hours, really. They probably spend the night reading it, trying to work out what it all means, and then they've got to table amendments tomorrow if they want anything changed. And then on Saturday morning, they'll get the document read to them through an interpreter. It still won't be translated, but the amendments will have been incorporated. Wow. So, the argument is if they're going to have a translated document, it should really have been the draft document so that they can know exactly what they're reading, rather than on Saturday when it's time to vote on it in the afternoon.
Edward, on John Paul II's feast day, which this is, St. John Paul, one of the Polish archbishops said he was struck that so many of the teachings of John Paul II on the family were foreign to the other Synod Fathers. Why do you think that is? Why was this icon of the family and a pope that looms so large, why was he largely absent from this Synod, in your opinion?
It's a very good question. I mean, I think somebody said, well, a lot of the Synod Fathers probably don't know many of the documents anyway, not only John Paul II, but they probably haven't read a whole lot of the sort of encyclicals of the past 30, 40 years. So, there is that. But I think that also this Synod has been, I mean, at the last Synod, certainly there was a certain marginalization of John Paul II. John Paul, the Pope of the family, of course, as people called him, which was very ironic. But we don't really know why that is. I think it's just a general ignorance, and that's what I've been hearing too. That's been the case among most of them.
Tell me about this new dicastery. The Pope came out this morning. He announced that he was founding a new dicastery that would be made up of some existing councils, the Pontifical Council on the Family, the Pontifical Council on the Laity, the Academy for Life. He was consolidating them into one thing. How is this being received by the Synod Fathers? And might this be the much discussed commission that some of these small groups argued should be tasked with figuring out whether communion should be extended to the divorced and remarried?
That's a good question, Raymond. It's too early to say, of course, but I think there is this attempt by the Pope to obviously bring these things together to try and make it a more efficient and a more answerable to the people that they're supposed to be serving. So I think the general aim is good. This, of course, is a fruit of the C9, the group of 9 cardinals who've been discussing curial reform. It's been rumoured for some time, so it doesn't come as a great surprise. I think the timing is quite a surprise. We're not quite sure why the Pope chose to, announce this in the middle of the synod or coming to the end of it, but I'm sure he has a good reason, and yeah, I think we just have to wait and see how this pans out. But I think there'll be similar things like this too, a certain consolidation of dicasteries as well.
Edward, I only have another minute here. We heard a cardinal from Bombay today say there are no answers in this final document, only questions. You had Archbishop Roberto Gonzalez say that the document, the final document, will leave the door open to the Holy Father. Given that speech that we heard on Saturday, which I was discussing earlier with my papal posse, talking about the Pope's office being the guarantor of unity, what do you expect he will do? An apostolic exhortation? Is that what you expect?
I think that could be the case, but whether that comes soon, we don't know. I mean, usually these documents take 6 months or longer. And some people think, well, maybe he'll wait until the Year of Mercy is completed and then issue it at the end of that, so in a year's time. But I think if he does delay it, I think it shows that the Pope wants all these issues discussed more. He might just make this whole Year of Mercy a year in which to discuss these issues more at the diocesan level. I think that's part of the plan with this Year of Mercy. I think it is to put it out to the diocese and to regional bishops' conferences to discuss in greater detail. So I think that's probably the way he'll go. But I can't see this final report staying out of the public eye. I think somehow we're going to see it, although we still don't know for sure if the Pope does want it published. So we'll see. Yeah.
Oh, well, if so, this synod will have ended with a whimper rather than a bang. The Rigging of a Vatican Synod, the e-book by Edward Pentin, is available online at ignatius.com and amazon.com, and all his reports are at the National Catholic Register. Edward, thanks for being there.